completed building. It's important to remember that all of these activities rely on non-renewable energy sources. I believe that we all need to change our lifestyles in a way that benefits our future by conserving energy. I will be discussing how fossil fuels and green energy are being over and underused respectively. Josh will be presenting on the effects of fossil fuels and why renewable resources haven't taken off. And finally, Hung will be discussing what our future holds if we start saving energy today. I will now be discussing how dependent we are on fossil fuels and the idea that green energy growth is slower than it should be. Our dependency on non-renewable energy sources is frightening, to say the least. Our oil use alone in the United States is through the roof. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, over 19 million barrels of oil are used a day, or 35% of the energy consumed in America. If just one non-renewable resource takes up a third of our energy consumed in the United States, it is ludicrous to say the least, and steps should be taken to prevent things like this in the future from happening, such as walking to work or just taking the bus. Another issue we have in the United States is the lack of green energy. The Energy Information Administration found that in 2015, non-renewable resources only accounted for 10% of the total energy consumed in the United States. That is ridiculous to say the least, considering that there's solar, wind energy, and nuclear, hydropower. There's all these other sources of energy, and yet only 10%. I find it shocking that there's all this talk of advancement in the green energy sector, yet no real progress. I will now hand it off to Josh, who will be discussing the effects of fossil fuels and why renewables haven't taken off.
Yeah, so let's talk about sort of why we have these issues currently. And so looking at fossil fuels, the disadvantages. So using fossil fuels in your cars creates a lot of carbon dioxide, which leads to these greenhouse gases, which causes global warming. And so what essentially that means is this carbon dioxide is staying in our atmosphere, and all the heat that the Earth radiates is bouncing off those gases and coming back and heating up our planet. For instance, the planet of Venus has so much carbon dioxide in its atmosphere that it's over 500 degrees warmer than it would be if there was no carbon dioxide in its atmosphere, which is a ridiculous amount. As well as using all these fossil fuels creates sulfur dioxide, which can lead to acid rain, which can destroy buildings, things like that. And so let's talk about wind and solar and why wind and solar energy aren't really used as much as fossil fuels. So first of all, the power storage is expensive. Just a few days ago, Tesla came out with their latest battery to hold solar energy, and we're talking $5,500. And that's on the low end of the spectrum for just containing 1 day's worth of power for your home. It's really expensive. But Tesla is creating this new tech. They just came out with new solar panels that look like roofing tiles. So it's almost unnoticeable to people that you would have these solar panels powering your home. So there is new tech being created every day, cheaper and cheaper costs. And sometimes it's just not available. As Andrew Follett, an energy and science reporter for the Daily Caller says, solar and wind are only effective in some areas. Green power sources are hard to expand and simply not practical in some places. Usually in the places where you would be using solar, you would be using wind power, those places already have solar power panels. They also have wind farms. These things are already sort of taken up. And so finally, let's talk about nuclear energy. So nuclear energy is looking very promising. The Nuclear Energy Institute reports that 19.5% of energy last year was nuclear. And there are roughly 100 power plants in the United States that are generating all this power. Just one was made last year, October 2015. I believe they're working on building 4 more. So nuclear energy is definitely looking very promising for us. And now let's go to Hung. He's going to talk to us about the visualization of the future.
All right, thanks. All right, after we review about the reason why we should saving the energy, now we need to see what happened with our lives after we save the fossil fuel. So saving fossil fuel means saving money. According to the Department of Transportation, a family who use public transportation more than driving their own vehicle can sell to 10,000 a year. And as George said before, burning fossil fuel also causes the global warming by increasing the CO2 that harm our ozone layer. So we need to save and then limit using the fossil fuel in order to keep our planet clean. Also, we can use amount of money we save and sell from using fossil fuel. We can help other country or area where they need the action of saving fossil fuel. So therefore, we also make our planet clean and make our country still have amount of fossil fuel, and we can help other area be clean same like us. The second point that of saving fossil fuel is we still have like amount of fossil fuel for our next generation. So as you know, the fossil fuel first discovered in the early 20th century, and since then we use them and winding them without making a good plan. So right now, according to the geology, the amount left of fossil fuel will only give us enough until 2088. It means like more than 70 or 80 years later. So think about the terrible case of our life without fossil fuel. Like we cannot drive our own vehicle, we cannot even go anywhere by plane or by ship, or even but the stuff in the factory they cannot run because they run out of fossil fuel, so they can produce us a food or something related to our life. So let's move on to the conclusion after we reviewing the problem, the cause, and the visualization of our life when we save the fossil fuel. So in conclusion, after we reviewing the cause and the problem and review our future after we saving the fossil fuel, we should take an action right now. So after the period of using fossil fuel without making a good plan, we should work together and then make a good plan to conserve our potential energy like fossil fuel. This is exact time for us to work together before it run out of fossil fuel. According to the stuff by geologists, again, like the fossil fuel will run out in the late of the 21st century, so we can work together and then we're gonna still have enough fossil fuel for our next generation. So let's take an action.